Earlier this week, I traveled to the state capitol and sat down with Beto O'Rourke at an organizing rally where he talked about what he believes is his path to victory this November.
Hey, Austin, how are we doing? Good to be with you.
How are you feeling about the race right now?
I feel really good. We have more than 92,000 volunteers now, and we're going to try to knock on over 5 million doors over the course of these next 45 days. It's the largest organizing effort in America right now, probably one of the largest in U.S. history, and it's happening in Texas because not the candidate, not the political party, but this moment. Total abortion ban. Nearly 18 weeks since those 19 kids and 2 teachers were taken from us in Uvalde. The governor hasn't done a thing. The grid has collapsed and still isn't fixed. And you have the single greatest attack on voting rights and democracy right here in Texas. But these folks, they're not taking it. They're standing up to be counted. They're going to fight back, and together we're going to win.
Why are the polls even as close as they are? I mean, there are a lot of people who say Greg Abbott's going to win this. How can that possibly be true after you list a litany of things that should have Texas voters from both parties furious, irate, ready to kick Abbott out of office? What's happening in Texas that keeps people supporting Greg Abbott?
In terms of this polling, I think Texas is most accurately described not as a red state, but as a non-voting state. 7 million eligible voters didn't cast a ballot in 2020. It is so suppressed and intimidated. These organizers and volunteers, they're the answer to that. They're going to knock on the doors of those targeted for suppression and actually make them the margin of victory on election night. That's how we overcome the status quo and the attack on democracy that we see here in Texas.
Why do you think Abbott is sanctioning a total ban on abortion? I mean, he's a political animal, and it does not take a rocket scientist to look at how badly that issue is playing out for Republicans across the country. Why did he do it? Why does he support this? Why is the Republican Party where it is in Texas, where the polling is really clear about what Texans want and its choice?
Who knows about his motives? My best guess is he began last year, the legislative session, where he signed that abortion bill into law, assuming that not only would he win his reelection, but he had a chance to get the pole position in the Republican presidential primary for 2024 against Ron DeSantis. So for him, probably in his calculation, there was no cost to running to the right and the most extreme edge of just about everyone else.
Do you feel like there's an influx of voters who haven't voted before because of what the Supreme Court did, because of what is now the status of reproductive choice in the state of Texas?
The reason that more than 300 people came out tonight on a Saturday in Austin to sign up to do really hard work tomorrow, the reason that we'll be in a rural community like Hunt County and 800 people will come out in the middle of the day to gather, the reason that we're seeing record energy across Texas is definitely not because of me or my party. It has to do not only with the Dobbs decision, but Greg Abbott signing the most extreme abortion ban in the United States of America into law right here. And not only is it a ban that begins at conception without exception for rape or incest, but it's happening in a state that leads the country in a maternal mortality crisis.
You have been name-checking Governor Abbott, your opponent, in a way that you didn't name-check Senator Cruz in 2018.
Yeah, that's right.
Explain that strategy to me. Explain that change.
In 2018, I wrongly assumed everyone had formed their opinion on Ted Cruz, and there was very little I could add to that. You loved him or you hated him. What I didn't realize or think about is there are a lot of people working $7.25 an hour jobs in Texas, which is still the minimum wage, raising their kids, taking care of their folks, just living life, who are not plugged in and didn't realize or understand the danger of Ted Cruz representing them in the U.S. Senate. I'm not making that mistake with Abbott. I mean, the lights went out in Texas because of Greg Abbott. Our utility bills have gone up because of Greg Abbott. Highest property tax increase that we've probably ever seen in this state, that is Greg Abbott. The single greatest driver of inflation in Texas, Greg Abbott. Gun violence in our schools, Greg Abbott. So you name a problem. This guy's been in office for 8 years. He owns it. I'm going to make sure that every Texas voter, Democrat, Independent, Republican alike, know that and understand that they have a choice and an alternative and a better path forward in November.
Immigration. The national news is talking about what Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott have been doing together in tandem, shipping migrants, asylum seekers to points north in many cases not being truthful with them about where they're going and what awaits them. Is that galvanizing Texas voters? Busing is something that is happening here in the state. This is a different kind of busing. Does it strike the ire of Texas voters in the same way that it does other voters in the rest of the country?
All of us, to a person in this state, are so deeply frustrated at how broken our immigration system is. And the president and Congress, who have the power to do something, must get that done, because for as long as they don't, this gets used as political theater for demagogues like Greg Abbott, who are willing to bus people, who are willing to build a 1.5 mile of border wall, who are willing to speak in the language of invasion, of defending ourselves, of taking matters into our own hands, all things that the governor has said.
Do you think Biden is leading adequately on immigration?
No. There's a lot that he's doing well and a lot that I am very grateful for. But when we have the power, as he does now, as Democratic and Republican presidents alike have had, and don't use it to fix something that is so badly broken, where we're missing the opportunity to satisfy the demands of our economy here in Texas and also to live up to our values as Americans. When we think about 52 migrants dying in the back of an 18-wheeler or being swept away to drown in the Rio Grande River, or the Border Patrol agents on whose backs we place this broken immigration system and somehow expect them alone to carry this or to fix this, then it's on all of them. In fact, Ronald Reagan was the last United States president to work on and be able to reform our immigration system. It has literally been that long. And sometimes the cynic in me thinks that both parties love to have this as an unsolved issue so that it's something that they can campaign on.
Your message these days is equal parts hope and fear, right? Americans look around and they're like, the walls are closing in. Freedoms that I had taken for granted for the last 50 years since our parents were young seem to be encroached upon or on the line, whether it's book bans, whether it's gay marriage, whether it's women's reproductive choice, whether it's voting rights, whether it's the sanctity of our democracy. How do you convince people that things can change when one party seems so inextricably dug in to the darkness, honestly, to a very, very dark dystopian path for the country, and that's the party you got to work with to get anything done?
Yeah. I'm as optimistic as I've ever been, and I think it has a lot to do with traveling this state constantly and seeing so many good people, not limited to Democrats. I meet a lot of good Republicans, a lot of good independents, a lot of folks who've never voted before but want to do the right thing right now at this defining moment of truth. They're not going to allow this total abortion ban to define us, or these stunts with immigrants at the border to define us, or the cruelty, the corruption, the chaos that we see in Texas right now to define us. They know that may define Greg Abbott and those currently in power, but they know that we, the people of Texas, are much better and bigger than all that. So the way in which people are showing up and standing up to be counted, to do the tough work of knocking on doors and meeting voters where they are, gives me all the faith in the world that we're going to overcome this and we're going to win this thing on November 8th.